it today, so she won't be able to take notes, although she hopefully will be dialing in here in a minute. I was wondering if we might have a board volunteer that would be able to take notes today. It will be recorded. Andy, awesome. Thank you so much I saw your hand first, so really appreciate that. You can email them to me and I'll get them posted afterwards. So sincere appreciation for that. Thank you, Andy. So I'll be taking board attendance today here since Paul is indisposed. So I'll go through the list here, see if I missed anybody. I've tried to grab everyone checking in as able. Alicia Brown, are you here? No. Aileen, are you here yet? No. Brian Carroll? Danielle Shepard. Ian Chowdhury? Joe Levy?
Hi.
Julie,
Hi.
welcome back.
Thank you.
It's so great to have you. For those of you that didn't know, Julie was on sabbatical for a little bit, so we're very excited, even though her name says Jamie.
I'm going to
We're
change that.
really excited to have Julie back, and that's a good reminder for everybody, if you don't mind updating your names, just to denote your full name and if you're who you're representing, what council district or mayoral appointee. I saw June, I saw Joe Levy join here. Tinsley, are you here, Tinsley?
Ellen, I don't mean to interrupt, but are you noting attendance? I said I'd take the minutes, but are you checking a box?
Oh, you did? Okay. Andy had volunteered too, but if you had
Oh.
already had volunteered too directly with Paul, that's great. We'll let you run with it. If Andy's okay with that.
I'm good either way.
Yeah, we could maybe both take.
That works for me. We can compare notes after.
Yeah, great. Thank you both so much for volunteering. Really appreciate that. So that brings us to a total of 9, which at least 9 so far, and we're expecting 1 or 2 more. So that does make quorum. That brings us on to public comment. And so, Nanita, do we have anyone signed up for public comment today?
No, no one.
Great. Okay, so we'll keep moving. Oh, we do have one person raising their hand, it looks like. Ashley Kidder is raised their hand, so maybe they signed up for public comment or weren't able to do it quite in time. Nanita, would you be okay promoting them?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think she's promoted.
Okay, Ashley, if you could go ahead and unmute, you're welcome to. Great. Thank you for joining us. You've got 3 minutes for your public comment. Thank you for coming tonight.
Sure, great, thanks. So my name is Ashley Kidder. I am a small business owner here in Denver. I live 1 block off of Federal Boulevard, and I've been a car-free transit rider for the last 5 years. I've been following the Federal Boulevard BRT progress for quite a while, and I really wanted to talk about just kind of giving my feedback as someone who rides the 31 daily and how I'm hearing, seeing the progress about the updates about the project, seeing that the bus only lane is going to be cut from 50th to 20th Aves, I believe is the area where there won't be a dedicated bus lane at this point in the project. I just can't feel more passionate about that for 2 reasons. One, as I have been a daily rider for so long and I spend a lot of time on the 31, I know there's kind of there's ideas that with like a signal to let the bus kind of pass before traffic does. I just can't endorse that because I sit in traffic on this bus so much. I've missed connections to other routes because the bus moves so slowly down Federal. And when I'm connecting, I'm usually connecting to an east-west route going through the city. And as many of you probably know, a lot of those routes only come once, twice an hour. So if I miss that route, I'm pretty much screwed and have to find an Uber or a Lyft or something for $30, $40 usually. So I understand that it's a great idea to give the bus the signal to pass through traffic. I just don't think it's going to work as someone who's been on this bus for 5 years pretty much. And my second thought on why this is kind of frustrating for me is because I already feel like a second-class citizen riding transit in this city, and this makes it feel even more like I'm even a lower class citizen. As someone who lives in Denver proper, it feels like a lot of the transit plans for the city are really only for getting people from the suburbs into the city and vice versa. It doesn't really feel like people who live in Denver proper are valued. So it's upsetting to see 50th through 20th not included in the dedicated bus only lane. And I just don't know why the people who are in the heart of the city, why we don't get to experience those benefits that those in the suburbs might. And I think the light rail is a great example of that. For, I would say, 1 out of every 10 rides that I take on RTD is light rail, because it does not serve me as someone who lives in Denver proper. And I've shared this experience with other friends of mine who don't have cars, that really the light rail just feels like people to get people from Littleton or Thornton or where have you into the city and out. It really just doesn't feel like there's much of a value as somebody who lives in Denver proper. So I just wanted to share those 2 pieces of feedback, because I'm not sure if any of y'all are daily riders on the 31, and I thank you for my time.
Ashley, thank you so much for that public comment. That was really valuable, I think, for the board and for department leadership to hear. So thank you for joining us tonight, sharing your experiences on the 31 and elsewhere and taking transit in Denver. Thanks again. I think that is it for public comment tonight. Nick, we've got you down for an update from DOTI leadership. Would you like to give the update to the group tonight? Or
Yes,
this
sir,
evening?
Mr.
This
Chair,
afternoon?
thank you. Yes, and I'm going to touch on 2 items from last month that came up in public comment, both the Santa Fe First Friday full street closure, and then the 29th and Larimer Open Places program, as well as just give a quick update. And you may have saw Amy on the front page of Denverite today here on a quick update on the speed camera and the overall speed program on there. So first up, Santa Fe. I think you'll remember the event organizer came on and provided comment last month on there. And this is an event I'm probably familiar with the normal First Friday events where it's basically kind of stays to the sidewalk on there. But last year, an event occurred for the August First Friday event where the full street was closed on there. And while it was a popular event, there were some major concerns about some of the elements that went into that event, and specifically around traffic control. And so as we've moved into the 2025 event, we've been expressing those concerns and really trying to make sure that when the event goes forward, that it's done in a very safe and orderly manner on there. We have hit some speed bumps. I'm sorry, speed cushions with the event right now, but just want to tell this group we are continuing to work with them to be able to provide really that objective list of criteria of what needs to happen in order for that event to be safe. And we are, the intent is to wrap that up. We're meeting, city council members have taken interest in this. So we're going to meet with them a little bit later this month, and then should expect to wrap this up and hopefully have a good structure for a successful event by the end of this month. Looking forward to that. Second item, 29th and Larimer. So this was a street closure that ceased to be a street closure as of the beginning of February on there. And I know a lot of folks were disappointed that that did not continue as a full street closure. And just for some background, this was a closure that started in 2020 as part of the COVID expanded patio program. And we won't go too much into that. I don't think anybody wants to remember kind of that 2020 period on there. But this was a program, and you saw this throughout the city, where businesses were able to extend into the sidewalk area, into the street area on there. And this was a full closure. So the expanded patio program was transitioned into what's called the Outdoor Places program as a permanent regulatory structure for being able to do this. And that is now an official program. It's managed by a few city departments, including Community Planning Development, DOTI, as well as the Economic Development Organization here on there. And so that program went into effect late 2023, I think December of 2023. The Rhino bid was the permit holder under the patio program. They at that time were granted a transitionary permit to go from the outdoor patio program, then to make the decision on whether they wanted to move into the outdoor places program on there. Kind of in that interim period, Rhino Bid decided they did not want to pursue that themselves, but there was an option for a nonprofit applicant to move forward on that. Ultimately, as this group knows, that group decided not to pursue that, thus ending that street closure on there. And certainly recognize kind of the disappointment. I know a lot of folks enjoyed that on there. And I think, you know, it kind of points out, you know, I think a lot of folks have felt, gosh, why didn't the city step in on this? And it really goes to kind of there's two areas of how we do this. There are programs like this that are community driven, community led, and community supported, where they are responsible for the maintenance of those areas and keeping that up. And then you have the city led ones. And so great examples of those are of course, Larimer, probably the most famous example on there, Glen Arm, and then Wine Coop coming up on there. And so want to make it clear that the city does support these things. There are cases where if it's stakeholder led and the stakeholder committee decides, or the stakeholder group decides not to do it, that's their decision on there, where we're basically permitting that. But as a concept, the city still does support this. You do see that in the outdoor places program requirements on there. And we look forward to more events or more kind of activations and closures like that, which very much aligns with Mayor Johnson's goals around increasing the vibrance of downtown on there. And then last up, speed program. I think it was, gosh, what day is it? It is Tuesday. So yesterday was a press conference over in the Federal and Alameda area where did a kind of a full announcement of a broad speed program, really a program designed around reducing speeds throughout the city, but really initially targeting the federal area on there. And I think this group is probably familiar, but that is certainly an area on our high injury network, an area with wide roads, high speeds, and a lot of accidents and a lot of pedestrian fatalities on there. And so the speed program is a broader campaign, including a marketing campaign. So you can see the billboard on there as you drive by. But I think one of the things folks picked up on was and something that we've been working on for the past quite a while here is there will be an implementation of fixed speed cameras on here. And this was something that was the ability to use these was expanded by the state legislature a couple years ago on there. Denver currently uses a mobile program where you'll see a Jeep out there that is issuing those automatic tickets. And this will be our first basically, and there's still things to finalize and there's still community conversations to happen, but the first cameras will be in kind of the Federal Alameda area on there, which we know is a high need area on there. So as I said, you know, but with these programs, you know, the challenge is, of course, gosh, you're going into an area of traditionally underinvested area on there, and now we are putting in an enforcement tool on there. So what we want to do, and what our Office of Community Business Engagement team is doing, is making sure, and as we work with the police department, the Department of Safety, making sure we're going out into the community so they understand what's going on here, understand how this is going to show up on there, and really hopefully we can show, and other fixed program have shown start to reduce speeds, start to reduce accidents, and certainly start to reduce fatalities is the goal on that. So more to come on that. Will likely be, this does require an ordinance change, so will likely be in City Council probably in the summer time frame. We'll certainly keep this group apprised of that. End of report, Mr. Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for that update, Nick. Looks like we have June with her hand up first.
No surprise, I'm going to ask about speed cameras. So, Nick, I don't know how familiar you are with the report I helped co-author on speed cameras last year.
Seen at the white
Uh,
paper. Yep.
Yep. So, do you know if, because like, talking to community and making sure you get input on where the cameras are located is important, and we've already got statutory maximums for tickets. Do you know if the actual revenues are going to be reinvested in infrastructure in that area? That was one of the prime recommendations to make
Yes.
sure that this wasn't just, pulling resources out of a disadvantaged neighborhood, that it was actually about permanently reducing crashes, even once the cameras are removed in the future.
Yes, that is a conversation we're having, and how, and you put it very well, is gosh, to come in and enforce and then take that funding elsewhere doesn't feel fair on there. So those are conversations we're continuing to have with our Department of Finance, with our city attorneys, how we go about doing that. And is there a way to do that under current city structures on there? So that is definitely still on the table, June.
Okay, and I'm happy to meet at a different time and talk about this, and happy to work out details on that. But that's
Thank
something I feel very, very strongly about has to happen with this program to maintain community trust and to lead to not just reductions when the cameras are on, but also in the future, make it so that by design, Federal and Alameda aren't deadly. And we need money for that. So that's where the investment should go.
Great. Thank you.
June, next up in the queue, we have Julie. Welcome back, Julie.
Thank you. Happy to be back. I just wanted to make sure I understood about the street closure. You said there was like a community-led, community-owned, and then the community has to maintain and manage it versus a city-owned. So the street that they were upset about closing in Larimer, is that because that was gonna be a community-owned one and the community decided not to do it? Or does every single one have to have a business or nonprofit or someone that's gonna say, I wanna do a thing here?
Yeah, great question, Julie. And when I say community, here we'll clarify that here. So really community is, in this case, it took the form of either the Rhino bid or the nonprofit that was going to be set up specifically to, or was set up specifically to be the permittee and manage this program on there. So now like a Glenarm or a Larimer or what's with Wine Coop, that is a city done. We maintain that on there. It's not a specific business or organization that is a permittee on that. So those are the different ones.
But I guess my question is, people were upset about, oh, the street being reopened, but it seemed like the reason the street was being reopened because there wasn't someone that was gonna do something specific with it. Is that why?
Correct. At its essence, we did not receive a permit application to keep the street closed.
Oh, so there has to be a permit.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Joe, you're next in the queue. Thanks, Julie.
Yeah, well, yeah, Nick, great presentation. I had a question I was looking at the 13th, 14th study that's being done, and no mention of speed cameras. I even pointed that out to them. So I was just wondering, okay, so we now have federal, but obviously there's a lot of other areas. Is that going to be used as a pilot project, or what are the plans to expand that? And I can think of not only accidents, but there are some streets where people are going way too fast. Whether there's an accident or not, it's going to happen. And I'm thinking of like Evans and things like that. So is there, again, just an overall program to slowly roll this out, or what are the next steps, I guess?
That is the expectation, Joe, is to, we're going to start here likely in the Federal and Alameda area. Unfortunately, the city is full of areas where that would very much benefit from this. The statute requires it to be there be a data-driven decision on where it is, and we really are equating that with a lot of the Vision Zero data that you've seen around high injury networks, things like that. So quick answer is yes, the intent is for this to expand on there. A lot of factors go into that, the success of the pilot, costs, things like that. You've seen some other cities kind of move forward, pull back, go back on it. We want to make sure that we are implementing this in a very smooth manner on there. But yes, the intent is to expand that throughout the city. could not give you a timeline, even if you begged on there. There's many factors on this, but it's not intended for this to be a one and done.
Thanks, Joe. And I think we have time for one more question. Andy.
Thanks, hi, Nick. You mentioned a Denverite article earlier. I saw a different Denverite article this month about the Cerebral Brewing parking issue, having to give up a bunch of their patio, replace their really successful patio with more parking spots. Is that anything you know about? I get the conversation, people shouldn't necessarily be upset at DOTI or about the city, about the 29th and Larimer, or maybe Viva Streets if it's the organizations. But the Cerebral Brewing one seems pretty clearly the brewery wants to have their patio and the city's making them replace it with parking. Any thoughts?
Andy, that is one I don't know in detail about, but I can absolutely come back next month and even probably hit you up before that on that. I find that out if that is us or a different department that was making that decision on there. Although maybe I can phone a friend. I see a hand up from Ms. Thompson.
Hey guys, Maggie here from DOTI, but also a veteran of city council. So I do know this one, and it is a community planning and development requirement. So that would be one to take up with CPD with their minimum parking requirements. That was a decision that they made. So it is not a DOTI decision.
And I'd be happy to get some more information. They don't have a board as cool as this. So I'd be happy to get some more information for our next meeting if folks are interested in that.
Thanks, Nick. June, we have about 60 seconds. I'm going to be a stickler for the agenda time today. Since
I'm going to add
take it away, June.
I'm going to add on to what Andy said. I do want an answer from CPD on this question. It is kind of strange that we are requiring parking at a brewery where people explicitly go there to drink. That's, to me, minimum parking requirements at liquor establishments is always a very strange sort of confluence. But yeah, Nick, if you are able to get an answer from CPD on this, I'd appreciate it. I'm sure Andy would appreciate it, hopefully too.
Awesome, Nick. Thank you so much for that update. Lots of good stuff going on at DOTI right now. So thanks for keeping everyone informed. And thank you so much for having such a great feedback loop based on public comment from last month's meeting. We really appreciate you kind of honoring folks' questions and thoughts. So appreciate that as well. We are going to move on to the next agenda item. For those of you that haven't been around at Denver when there's a general obligation bond, I can't emphasize, one, how excited I am that the Department of Finance team is here to talk about it, but two, how much money this is going to be, exponentially more money for transportation and infrastructure projects in Denver. So I am so grateful the Department of Finance is here today. They are being very smart about this. I've seen so much community meetings and getting community input from different aspects of the city, from different committees to different neighborhoods, which is smart because ultimately it's going to be the voters that are going to approve this. So I love that they're getting buy-in to make sure that voters are going to be voting yes on this, which will be really exciting to have some great projects. Before we dive in too deep, I'm going to share my screen real quick. We are going to have public participation today. Oh, Anita, if you don't mind turning on my screen sharing, it looks like it's off for some reason, but board members, you will see the link for the Vibrant Denver Go Bond here in the chat. For those of you that are attendees, our 7 wonderful attendees watching the meeting today, you're going to have an opportunity to participate as well. Our co-chair, Aileen, had a great idea of why don't we get more feedback from people that are attending the meeting. So the survey is not only for board members, it will be for attendees. We want to hear what kind of projects you'd like to see here in the Go Bond. It looks like I'm not able to share my screen, so I'm going to spell this out for the attendees. The web link where you can do the survey is https://direct without a T, DIREC period TO /m uppercase F uppercase C uppercase A. That's https direct direc.to/m uppercase FCA. Sorry about that. I'm not able to get screen sharing privileges, but hopefully you're all able to get that And if you weren't, you can email me, alankogul@gmail.com, and I can just send you the link right now. But we'll take it over. Folks from Department of Finance, thank you so much again for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. Can everybody see and hear me? Good. All right. My name is Laura Swartz. I'm Communications Director for the Department of Finance. I am joined here by two of my colleagues, Patrick Riley and Laura Wachter, also from Department of Finance. I am going to share my screen. We have a short presentation for this group, and then we'll try to move through our presentation pretty quickly and then open it up for a lot of discussion and questions. I know you guys are one of our best advocacy groups in the city, and I know you're really, really thoughtful on how we do land use and how we do capital projects around the city. And so we've been really looking forward to this discussion. And again, just thank you for having us. So we will make sure that at the end of the presentation, we have plenty of time for that discussion. And let me see, can you guys see the presentation itself? Excellent. All right, well, in that case, I will mute myself, and Patrick, Laura, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. Can you guys all hear me? We're good? Perfect. Cool. Thank you. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of bonds and just a little bit about what bonds are and aren't. And then I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Patrick Riley, to talk more about the more exciting part about Vibrant Denver bonds and what we're proposing with the process, and also talk a little bit about that community engagement. So bonds. Next slide. So I'll be really quick here. I'm sure all of you guys know how GO bond works. So GO bonds, general obligation bonds. So we, Denver voters, GO bonds have to be approved by the voters. So it is debt that the city takes on. We typically have a bond program every 4 to 10 years. It's usually every 10 years or so. However, because RISE was 4 years after Elevate, that is why it's every 4 to 10 years. And I'll talk a little bit about the different bond programs a little bit later. So voters approve the debt and the GO bonds. We go out to the market and we issue those GO bonds. Investors buy the bonds from the city, and we are, because of our credit rating and our bond history, we are very good clients for those investors. With those proceeds from the bonds, we fund citywide projects, and I'll get into a little bit about what they can and can't be used for. And so we do projects, like the transportation projects, facility projects, infrastructure projects. And then after those projects are completed, over the course of about 20 years or so, investors are repaid through our property tax mill levy. Next slide. So what bonds are and aren't? So bonds, it's debt. We use bonds to do infrastructure improvements. A lot of bonds are for reinvestment. And so we like to reinvestment or deferred maintenance. So really thinking of the city's capital assets. We restore, replace, and expand city amenities. So a lot of past bond program or bond projects, 16th Street Mall was funded by bonds, Colfax BRT funded through bonds. So a lot of city facilities are funded through bonds. So it's really those big capital projects that don't normally come through our annual capital improvement program. Our capital improvement program is, that's what we fund our regular maintenance, our annual maintenance, if you will. So we have a mill levy that's dedicated to maintenance, street paving, pothole repair, bridge maintenance. So that's a lot of our maintenance program annually. We also, through our CAP, we can initiate larger projects, but typically within our annual CIP, we typically have about $25 to $30 million of discretionary funds on capital projects. So that's really why we use bonds a lot for those larger investments into our communities. We also have other funding sources. So we do depend a lot on grants. So a lot of federal grants, Colfax BRT, that's a huge federal grant. We got a lot of grants for 16th Street Mall. Special districts, they're really dedicated, geographically constrained. Special districts also support public infrastructure. And then we also have dedicated capital funds that are dedicated to, usually passed by voters, the Parks Legacy Fund, but dedicated for certain purposes. CASR has a special revenue fund, sorry, CASR sustainability. The Winter Park and the Lotto funds are also dedicated through, the Lotto is dedicated through state statute. Examples of what GO bonds can and cannot pay for. So again, we really use GO bonds for capital assets and infrastructure. They cannot be used for operating expenses. So for instance, solid waste collection or just normal operations within the city, police officers, bonds cannot pay for operating expenses. Our GO bonds cannot pay for schools, and it also cannot pay for things within the enterprise fund, so golf courses, airports, drainage. So all of those would be off of not allowable under the vibrant general obligation bonds. So over the course of the past year, we, per charter, the city is mandated to do a 6-year capital improvement plan. We just published, there's a link right there on the slide. And so we just published, and we spent the last year compiling this 6-year capital improvement plan. And this was an effort we, with all of our partners within the city, and really building it upon all of the work that had been done within the city. So basing it off of the Denver Moves Everyone plan, our plans within community planning and development, our parks plans. So those, taking all of the information from those plans and working with our partners in those agencies, we developed the 6-year capital improvement plan. And that's really becoming the basis for how we think about and plan for capital improvements in the future. So we have 2 project lists within here. We have new capital improvements, so those new projects. And then we also have the reinvestment and upkeep, what was formerly the deferred maintenance. So we have about 6 portfolios within the 6-year capital improvement plan. And so arts and culture, we have buildings, we have housing and sheltering. So that was a new one. So as the city starts taking on more housing and sheltering, that is now, we're treating that as a new capital portfolio. Parks and recreation, transportation and mobility, and then health, water, health, and the environment. And so from that 6-year capital improvement program, we talk a lot about, bond project eligibility. What is eligible for GO bonds? What can and can they be used for? So they can be used to fund construction of public infrastructure. Generally, they must be shovel ready. So the bond projects must be able to construct quickly. They generally must be part of a city-owned asset, and they have to serve a public purpose. Additionally, they have to have an expected useful life of at least 10 years. And this is really to avoid some of those temporary facilities and all of that. And so, and a lot of our GO bonds, because of the tax exempt nature, these are also rules and regulations by the IRS. And so we work really closely with our bond counsel on project eligibility. We also take a look at equity and that equitable distribution across communities. That's a huge value that we also look at in our bond project eligibility. So how do bonds help us? So they allow us to control our own destiny. This is a local financing tool, and it's local municipal debt. So we do not have to depend on the federal government for any of the bond funds. Oftentimes, especially in Elevate, we use the bond program to really leverage those federal funds, but this really does allow us to fund those big investments into our community with a local financing tool. We also ask voters for their input. So Patrick will get into some of the community engagement process. And this is really, really important because this is where we ask voters, what are your priorities in your community? What's important to you? And so that's really, really key because it allows us to really listen and invest our bonds and invest our money where priorities are for the voters and residents of our communities. The 6-year capital improvement program that I was talking about previously, it has identified about $7 billion of need. So that's over the course of 250 projects. Our annual capital budget is only 300 million. So these large bond programs really allow us to have those larger investments into those larger projects to really make an impact within our communities. Most importantly, that the mayor likes saying a lot is this is no new taxes. We are able to have a new bond program within our current debt capacity. So this is a new bond program will not have any new taxes. I can say that one more time. This is without raising taxes. So can't drive that home enough. Some recent bond programs. 2007, we had Better Denver Bonds. That was 550 million, 380 capital projects. That was a 10-year bond program. Examples, we had a lot of, the crime lab was funded in that. We had a lot of transportation projects funded through the Better Denver Bonds. A lot of facility improvements through the Better Denver Bonds. In 2017 was Elevate Denver Bonds, the biggest geo bond program in the city's history at 937 million and over 500 capital projects. And a lot of those projects were citywide programs as well. Like, so thinking of safe routes to school or those bike and a lot of sidewalk projects were funded in Elevate Denver. Bike and pedestrian mobility was funded within Elevate Denver. And about 50% of Elevate Denver was dedicated towards transportation mobility. That was also a 10-year bond program. 4 years after Elevate came the Rise Denver Bond Program. And that was a $260 million program with only about 80 capital projects. This one was is a 5-year bond package, but this was really intended to be an economic recovery tool after COVID. So I think that's why you're seeing usually we do bonds every 10 years. This one's after 4 years after Elevate, but it was really intended to have that economic stimulus after COVID. Next slide. So this is a little bit where I was saying no new taxes. So this is our snapshot of existing geo bonds. This is our debt service. So you can see the black line at the top. That's our revenue projections of our dedicated mills for debt service. You can see, and then the bar lines is our debt service for the Better Denver Bonds. The Elevate Denver is the green, and the Rise is the blue. The Rise debt service is the blue. So you can see we make some balloon payments in 2025 for Rise. And so our debt service and our debt capacity and debt service is reduced in 2026. And so that delta between the bars and the line is our debt capacity, our debt service capacity. And so that when I say no taxes, we can have additional debt service without increasing taxes there. I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Patrick Riley, to talk about our new bond program. So, Patrick.
Good afternoon, everyone. So this is the new Vibrant Denver bond program that we're talking about. So the quick and dirty of it is we're targeting roughly $800 million over 6 years. The primary driver around that 6 years, as Laura's already touched on, is with that shorter time frame, we feel like we'll be able to deliver to reduce risk and ensure residents actually see those improvements in their neighborhood in a quicker, more nimble fashion. So when you do a 10-year bond program, you may not remember exactly what you voted on every time. So with this 6-year time frame, we're hoping to be able to hear feedback from the community and actually make those impacts in the community in a time frame where people remember what they voted on and actually get to see it happen real time. So right now we're targeting roughly 5 priorities across the city. So that's parks, playgrounds, trails, and climate, trees. I skipped over, I apologize. Arts and cultural venues, rec centers, libraries, and other city facilities, connectivity, which is streets, bikes, bridges, and pedestrian safety, which obviously this group is going to be probably most engaged in, and then public safety, which is the police the fire, sheriffs, and emergencies in general. Next slide. Really, again, what is a bond priority? So these priorities are generally how we end up with ballot questions. So by figuring out what matters to us as a city and helping to sort our projects into these priorities, we're hoping to really sort into bond purposes and separate those into ballot questions. So that way we can go to voters and actually have dollar figures assigned to those categories. So voters can say, the arts and cultures means this much to us, or the connectivity means X amount of dollars to us. Next one. So what the process looks like, we are in this very far left box right now. So this is the project idea and submission intake. So the way that we're doing that is by coming and meeting with you all. It's going and doing community meetings, the first of which is tomorrow night in District 10. It's the online survey, denvergov.org/vibrantbond. It is talking to the different departments about reinvestment opportunities and hearing what things the community may not necessarily know about, but things that need to still happen. So it's taking in projects however we can hear about them. So I checked our list earlier today. I think we're roughly around 1,600 project ideas from the community now. We would love to get that up around 3,000, 4,000, as many as we can get. We want to really hear from the community on this one. From that, we're going to go into a technical review committee step, which is realistically validating our scope, schedule, budget, having the Office of Social Equity and Inclusion review those projects from a citywide equity lens. We're going to validate those intake forms, and we're going to make sure things are bond eligible. Once we get through the technical review committee stance, we're going to go into subcommittee review. And that's really taking those projects and sorting them into tiers, effectively 3 tiers. From the subcommittee process, it'll go into an executive committee review where we're going to take those 5 priorities and we're going to take those tiers and we're going to smash them all together and actually get a individual list that comes out that has every project kind of pushed together. And then from there, we're going to go into the legislative process. That's where the line kind of gets drawn across everything. And we say that the final dollar figure of this bond is, 811 million or 797 million, wherever it lands. And we start going through the mayor and city council to all lead to hopefully a vote here in November. So community engagement, already started touching on it. We are looking for community to tell us what they want to see. We want people to participate however they can. We're doing the community conversations, as I already talked about. There's also physical drop boxes in every library and every rec center in the city. We're putting together these subcommittees, primarily represented out of the community. So we are going to have city council members. We're going to have city subject matter experts, but primarily we're looking for people from the community. And again, denvergov.org/vibrantbond, you can actually sign up if you're interested to be a subcommittee member. We would love to have people from the community volunteer. So we, at this moment, have not seated a single person, have not selected a single person for that role on any of the priorities. So if you're interested, there is still time to do so and express your interest. Let us know. So the subcommittees are going to get sorted out. Again, community, city council, and some non-voting city subject matter experts. And then there will be an executive committee, which is the mayor's office designees, the chief financial officer, the city council president, and then some community leaders as well. We've already touched on the subcommittees here. We've kind of already gone through that. Community survey, we've talked about. The big thing to note here is the survey is scheduled to close right now on April 17th. So it feels like that's a long way away, a little over a month. That time is ticking away. So whether it's you all or the people that you represent, it's your friends, it's your neighbors, it's the people you work with, please get it out. We want to hear as much as we possibly can from the community. Survey responses, what we've heard so far. So the word cloud on the left kind of shows you the things that we're hearing a lot about. You see park kind of jumps out pretty quick there. You also see sidewalks jump out, traffic, bike. pedestrian, streets. That kind of feeds into the bar charts on the right there. What matters to people? The dark blue shows the importance. Like we're seeing it. It's in streets and bridges. It's in the parks and playgrounds. It's in the things that we interact with and that really improve our lives every day. And then kind of at the bottom goes to the satisfaction of those. Really what we're looking for there is that kind of light green. So we've seen above where streets and bridges matter a lot to us, but we're also seeing a high amount of dissatisfaction with those. So that's one of the areas that we're looking at investment, because that's what the people are telling us right now needs to be a place that we're targeting. So community conversations, touched on it earlier. District 10 tomorrow night is our first one. That's being held at 1245 Champa. Again, denvergov.org/vibrantbond. You can find all of the district calendars and locations. But depending on what district you're at, you can see the schedule right there on the right. District 4, I think, has 2 meetings. Every other council district, I believe, is represented at this time. Is that correct, Laura?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Took me a while to get off mute.
No worries. So again, timeline overview. We launched this bond program in February. We're in development from now until May. We're going through evaluation all the way up to July, where we're going through our legislative process to all get to that November 4th deadline of a vote, where hopefully the residents entrust us to go deliver another bond program for them. So questions?
I'm going to stop sharing my screen if I can figure out how to. And then, Alan, I think I'll turn it back to you to facilitate at this point. Is that right?
Yeah, that would be great. Thanks so much, Laura. And Laura,
Okay.
I have a favor to ask. I emailed you a PDF file with the survey link for the attendees. Is there any chance you could share that for a moment while we go through the first few questions here? And this is just a brief survey for anybody attending the meeting today. That was the link I gave before, but I was trying to come up with a way to actually show it. Nick, if you're able to show it too, you're welcome to, whoever it's easiest for.
Yes. Yep, I can do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura. Appreciate it. And first in the queue, while we're pulling that up for questions, we have June.
I know this shocks no one, but I'm going to ask some questions about this. So as I'm thinking about bond projects, I'm thinking about some big transit projects that I think would be very helpful for the city. One of them is on airport property and one of them is not. Could you speak towards project eligibility if the operator on that project is going to be primarily RTD? And if there's like a separation between bus projects and rail projects, because obviously bus projects operate on a regular roadway versus a rail project might be a separate right of way, legally speaking. Just like, do you have any idea about the eligibility of rail projects and city limits for bond money?
And again, real quick before you answer that, for those of you attending today, we'd love your input too. So attendees feel welcome to go to this link. Laura, thank you so much for putting this up, this HTTPS direct.to/MFCA. So sorry, go ahead and take away for June's question.
Yeah, so I think the general answer is that RTD handles the rail and those sides of things, which I know is not a great answer. So what I would say is, if you have a specific project that you think should be done, you can absolutely submit it, and we would have bond counsel effectively check the viability of it to see if it's eligible. My gut says it's probably not, but we'd be more than willing to check that out.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and to piggyback on exactly what Patrick said, is totally agree. You know, we can absolutely, you can submit it and we can work through it with bond counsel. But typically we don't use the city's bond capacity and funding for RTD, since RTD has several of its own revenue streams. You know, we are doing the Colfax BRT, but that's also the bus on the right-of-way project as well, on cities right-of-way. And so really working in partnership with RTD on that one.
Okay, so just as a quick follow-up to that, the project in particular I'm thinking about that would most likely qualify would be finally extending the L line up to 38th and Blake. As far as my understanding is, that alignment is along the right-of-way owned by the city and county of Denver. So could that potentially be eligible for bond funding?
Can definitely submit it through, then we can have more conversations through it.
Okay, appreciate
bond
it.
council. Mhm.
Laura, you feel welcome to drop the screen share at this point. Thank you again for that. Next in the queue, we have Aileen.
Hi, everyone. Thanks. Sorry, I was a little bit late. I had to finish up a doctor's appointment. Thank you for this presentation. I couldn't help but think about other big funding streams that our city is putting into place when you were describing this GO bond. So one of my questions, what the big question I had was, what does the crossover look like, or is there crossover between what the Downtown Denver or the Downtown Development Authority could fund, the DDA, and what this GO bond could pay for? I mean, do they pay for different things?
Yeah, that's a
You get
great,
where I'm getting at.
Yep, that's a great question. And so the DDA, that is a separate funding source. You're absolutely right. And that is actually a TIF that's set up through an authority by a state statute. So there's very specific boundaries within the Downtown Development Authority, and the revenue that we get in through the TIF can be spent on alignment of projects to the plan of development. And it had the money from the DDA and from that TIF has to be spent within the boundaries of the Downtown Development Authority. And it also has to be spent on properties that have petitioned in to the Downtown Development Authority. So for instance, we could not spend some of that revenue on a project, I don't know, outside of downtown area.
I
And so
understand that part. I think I'm more curious about where the Venn diagram is between, or is there a Venn diagram? That's my question. Is there overlap between what the DDA could pay for and what the GO bond could pay for? I think just to be transparent, where I'm getting at is, if a small portion of downtown Denver has access to a huge amount of money, which like $500 million or something, I mean, I'm a little bit concerned about some of that area, if that is the case, double dipping and then making less GO bond money available to the rest of Denver. Do you see where I'm getting at? And maybe that's not a real thing. That might not be a real thing, but that's what I'm trying to find out.
Yeah. And so you're right, the Downtown Development Authority and the GO bonds can be spent on capital expenses, and capital projects. However, we are very aware of the amount of investment going into the downtown area, and that will all be part of the community conversation as well with council, and that will be part of council conversations as well.
Okay, so it sounds like there's some overlap that could happen.
Yeah, I would say that there's some overlap, but I would also say that when we talk about the equity lens that is mentioned multiple times in that presentation and is a central driver that the mayor has talked about and Councilwoman Sandoval has talked about, I don't think that there is a major appetite to spend all of our money downtown at the risk of ignoring the other districts in the city. Like that wouldn't be an equitable distribution, and I don't think that there would be a significant appetite to do that.
Great, thank you all for addressing that question. Jake, you're next in the queue.
Actually had this question before June asked hers, but I was also thinking about the L line extension. This is just kind of a project that frankly needs to happen to finish the transportation network in Denver. I know that Lone Tree contributed 25 million to get the southeast rail extension completed in their city boundaries, and I know that's like 2.5 miles compared to 8 blocks. But those kind of contributions, I assume, would be allowed if something like Colfax BRT is allowed, right? I mean, I'm sure that Lone Tree was at least putting that in a capital improvements project, if not a bond.
So, I mean, again, I would say that everything is on the table. It is really just about what the community wants to put into suggestions and put in front of the subcommittees. I don't think anything is off the table. That is, I mean, it is still, while in city right away, it is still RTD's asset. It's not that there is anything that is off the table. I would say that it needs to go through there so that way bond counsel can vet what we can and can't do. I am not a lawyer, and I don't believe Laura is either. So we would we would want the lawyers to weigh in on that.
Okay, maybe we could get creative and say that we own the rail between 30th and 38th and then lease it back to them or something. But cool. I just really love to see us finally finish that solution.
Thanks, Jake. Joe, you're next in the queue.
Hey, thank you. Hey, Patrick, it's good to hear from you. It's Joe Levy. I see every time I talk to you, you gain in stature. So good for you. I just had a question on when we ask these requests. What's going to be the most effective? Should we get very specific? Like I want a stop sign here, here, and here? Or do we say I just want better bike lanes? What's the best way to approach that to give you guys a way to kind of evaluate what we want? So what amount of specificity should we be looking for?
I think something more than just a general comment about we want better bike lanes is helpful. Saying something that is, we just want better bike lanes is very hard for us to be able to scope in and identify what that means, because that might mean different things to different people. Saying, you know, I really like the bike lanes on South Broadway and would like to see that continued further north to Colfax or something along those lines, would be far easier for us to dial in what that scope would look like and work on a write-up to go to a subcommittee. If you say, I really like the bike lanes on 15th, but would like to see them hardened, we can do something with that as well. So any kind of specificity at all is more helpful than just generally, I like protected bike lanes and would like to see more of them.
Gotcha. That's the answer I was expecting. Thanks.
As my sophomore year English teacher said, specific is terrific, it sounds like. So thank you for that, Patrick. And thanks for the question, Joe. Gary, you're next in the queue.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. I have a kind of a sidebar question to most likely Nick. And that is that does your department now have a staffing plan that can manage both this bond project together with the sidewalk project, which could potentially put $200 million in the pipeline per year for quite a while? That's a lot of money and a lot of staff. So
yeah, you know, we've been through this before. I think we talked about kind of some of the previous bonds on there. And that is part of what goes into it as we do this, making sure we have the resources, you know, and sometimes we'll use different types of I don't want to say staff schemes, that sounds sketchy, but we'll use kind of different ways to make sure that these are staffed appropriately, because they're also there's some legal requirements similar to like an enterprise fund where you have to be very focused. Those staff have to be very focused on bond projects. Can't be kind of just general popping in, popping out on those. And so that's absolutely part of the conversations that we have. DOTI is very involved in this process behind the scenes. Department of Finance, of course, leads this on there, but we're very involved behind the scenes on making sure, yeah, that we absolutely have the resources to be able to deliver this. I mean, we are making, when we do this bond, we're making a promise. Here's what we're going to do. Here's when we're going to do it by on there. So great point that staffing and making sure we have those resources is critical.
Thanks for that, Nick. For the Department of Finance folks, a couple questions. One of them was, can you expand upon shovel ready a little bit more? Does that need to mean like schematics drawn up, or just maybe neighborhood interest, or a broader plan, or just needs to be executed in the next few years? And the second question I had someone message me on was, can you expand upon the committee application a little bit more? Are those committees divided into the different groups like transportation versus parks? And how does that correspond? I know a lot of us have seen some of the city council members reaching out saying like, hey, if you want to be on the committee, please let us know. Is that the same committee? Is that the executive committee? So sorry, two-part question.
Sure. So I'm going to answer them kind of backwards. So for the committee applications, yes, it is a committee per priority. So there is a parks committee, there is a connectivity committee, there is a facilities committee, there is an arts and cultures committee. So when you're submitting in an application, it is always helpful to say, I'm very interested in X committee, and here's my background, or here's why I'm interested in it. I'm on the DOTI advisory committee, and I'm very, very interested in bikes and ped and multimodal transportation, or whatever your interest is. It's always great to see the interest level and what your role is in the community. Always very helpful for us. We do a ton of research into it, but if you want to help lead us there, that is very, very helpful. And I'm sorry, it's super late in the day. Can you repeat what your first question was for me, Alan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and real quick again, Patrick, how does that differentiate with some of the city council members are asking out for people to apply upon committees? Is that applying to the executive committee, or is that like the subcommittee that you were just referencing that folks can apply to?
Sure. The city council members are actually soliciting for the same committees, and they are providing those lists back to us as well. So they're just helping to get us the biggest pool of interested residents that we can get to. So it all ends up in the same place. Whether you go through a council member or you go through the website, it all comes back to the same spot.
Great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. And shovel-ready projects, help us understand, does that need to be something that's gone through the planning team, the design team, or can it just be something that could be shovel-ready and constructed within the 5-6 year timeframe?
I think it's more of the second. It is about giving us something that is achievable within the bond timelines. So not every project, if we were to come out with a project list, it's not like we would want to construct everything starting on day one. We would want to tranche this out and do it over the course of the 6-year program, but everything needs to be accomplishable within 6 years, which means that we have to be able to effectively get it through a schematic into design, through that entire process, and built all within that 6-year timeframe. So shovel ready is really that achievable within the 6-year timeframe.
Great. Thank you so much for the clarity around that. Do we have any other questions for the amazing team from the Department of Finance, from the board members?
I've got none right now, but I'm going to be at those meetings and try to get onto a committee.
June, you would be an excellent member of the committee, and I know you would also ask good questions there as well. So thank you, June. Laura, and Patrick, I just want to applaud you all for your community engagement. I've seen your stuff everywhere coming in surround sound from different directions. So great job on reaching out, and thank you for spending the time with us tonight as well. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys very much. If you do have questions in the future or need us to come back and have a little dialogue, we are happy to do that at any point. So thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Turning it over next, we have our Council District 9 project update from the wonderful Maggie Thompson. And Nanita, I don't know if you can hear me since those others dropped off, if there's any way to add. I think we ran through our limit of screen sharing privileges, but if you can throw screen sharing co-host privileges to mine here while Maggie's going through, that would be great.
Yeah, can you guys see my screen now?
Yeah.
Looks great.
Excellent, everyone. Great, great, great. I'm just gonna open this up because I like to see people's faces, believe it or not. It makes me feel like I'm not living in La La Land. So, for those of you who I have done this presentation in some format before, I was here maybe middle of last year giving you guys a presentation on District 11. So I'll just real quick go through, the slides aren't moving. Let me see if I can talk them into moving. There we go. I just want to tell you a little bit about me and kind of how I got here because I know we have some new faces. So my background is in bicycle advocacy, pedestrian advocacy, safe routes to school work. And then once I kind of got to the point where the nonprofit world was a little much for me, I moved over to Denver City Council and worked there for about 10 years. And then I transitioned to working over here at DOTI a little over 2 years ago. So right around Christmas time 2 years ago. And my coverage area is districts 8, 9, and 11. So I tell people ballpark to the airport. So it's a huge tract of land. There's a lot going on out there, whether it's Dottie, whether it's the rest of the city, but having lived in that area, I live in the Clayton neighborhood. Julie, I think you're my neighbor. I think I see you and your dogs a lot up at Schaefer Park, and have for many years. But I've been there for about 20 years, so know the districts like the back of my hand. And this is really a job that I love to do, and that means a lot to me. You can see I have a small kid. He's a little bit bigger than that now. But he's starting to ride on the sidewalks and ride in the parks and stuff like that, so near and dear to my heart. And then I always like to show people this picture down at the bottom. While I spend most of my time at a desk answering emails and doing presentations, I do also volunteer for our residential snowplow team. This year we're really going to get stickers, but we got to have a snowstorm first. As I call us the desk jockey reserves. So we get out there and plow those residential streets during really big snow events from 3 p.m. to 3 a.m. So if you know of any good spots for coffee at 2 o'clock in the morning, let us know. Always like to hear about those. So community designers, you've met all 4 of us now, so I'll kind of breeze through this one. But we are a city council liaison to the implementation team. Specifically, we're in traffic, we're in transportation, and then we're down in the implementation team. So I like to say we get stuff done, we get things built, we get things on the ground. We also work really closely with our area traffic engineering team. I'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute, where I'm going to spotlight one project that they're working on that I think is super cool. And then we do a lot of herding cats. I like to think we're also the busybodies. So I know what development is going on what road and what project is happening here, and I'm able to tie people together and tie projects together to make sure that things are working a little more smoothly over time. A little more smoothly is the key phrase there. Try our best. So you'll see other folks from the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure out there. You'll see our planning team. Those are the folks who look at the city as a whole and plan what we should be doing one day. And that's a lot of those projects that are hopefully going to get filtered into that bond. Then they'll get funded, and then they'll land over on our plate to build and get on the street. We also have an Office of Community and Business Engagement. DOTI houses our solid waste department, our Orange Street team, which is our parking and curbside usage team, street maintenance, the guys who are out there paving, laying down striping, putting in crosswalks, all that kind of fun stuff. It's kind of day to day. Our operations teams are out there repairing those things and doing work orders. And then, believe it or not, we also do storm and wastewater. So some of our biggest, most fun projects are actually ones where we're getting to put a big pipe underground and we get to do cool stuff on top of it when we rebuild the road. So you've probably seen the 39th Avenue Greenway, which for those of us who've been around for a long time was not much to look at for a very, very long time, and is now a great place to spend with your family watching hawks. There's so many hawks there, it's crazy. So you might see our crews out doing one of our big implementation projects, but you might also see us out doing routine maintenance, paving, putting up signs. You might also see some of our partners from our utility companies doing work. Those utility companies do have permitting through us. So sometimes we are able to answer questions about who's doing construction on a road, or maybe you came across I admittedly was in Adams County this weekend and came across some road construction that I was like, this road construction traffic plan would not pass muster in Denver. It was real sketchy up there on North Pecos. But we do manage those kinds of things. And so we can help if you're seeing some problems like that out there. And then private construction does happen in instances where it does have to kind of creep out into the public realm sometimes. So big projects are going up, they've got to put cranes and they've got to close sidewalks. And so we issue those permits that allow them to do those things and hopefully minimize their impact on the right of way. So quick spotlight, I mentioned I work a lot with our traffic engineering team, and these are two things that I think are a really cool win for me to talk about, just about what we're doing now as a matter of practice. So the first one is we're standardizing what we call the lead pedestrian interval. So for anyone who's been out there, I'll use my favorite example currently of 21st in York. For the longest time, there wasn't a car at 21st in York and you're coming out of the park, you're on your bike or you're on your feet, you had to press a button. And only if you press that button would you get the opportunity as a pedestrian to cross. So that was a problem to begin with. And then on top of that, you only had the time while the traffic signal was green for vehicles to get across. And so lead pedestrian intervals, when you have those extra few seconds to get out, establish yourself in the intersection as a pedestrian before you cross over. And what we're doing now is anytime sorry about the thumbs up, I have a Mac and it does crazy things. Anytime we're out tinkering with one of our signals and working on its timing, we are assessing it to see if a lead pedestrian interval would work at that signal and if it's warranted at that signal. So know that we are out there doing that when we can. So you may see the guys out working in the box. You may see a signal get upgraded, and you'll start to see some of that functionality coming in if the signal has the ability to. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts there, but we're doing what we can with what we've got to add that as many times as we can. If we touch a light, we're checking to see if it's possible. The second thing we're doing is going through some of our collector roads in the city and doing some speed limit studies. So specifically in District 9, if you've noticed that York, 23rd, and 26th have all gone down in speed limit, that's been part of that process. Not only does that, I won't say that a speed limit slows people down, right? We all know people drive the speed they're going to drive despite what's posted and the way that a road is engineered. But it does two things for us. One, it ups the ante if there are penalties out there. So if someone is speeding, they're more likely to get a ticket, and a substantial ticket out there. The other thing that allows us to do is speed limit really affects the type of facilities we can put on a road. And if we want to be putting in things like crosswalks where there isn't a signal or where there isn't a stop sign, we can't do that on a 45-mile-an-hour road. We can't do that on a 35-mile-an-hour road. But if we lower the speed limit to 25, we can begin to add in some more of those elements that will physically slow down those cars. So you'll see some of those things happening around the city. The best way to tell is if you see a speed limit sign that's got 2 orange flags on it. That means it's recently changed. And I'd like to say that in my time here, I don't think we've upped any speed limits. We've only lowered speed limits, which is good, because as we know, speed kills. But that is something to just keep an eye out for and know that that's something our traffic engineers are paying attention to. And anytime they get the chance to, are lowering those speed limits where appropriate to slow down cars and to allow us to do different treatments on those roads. Now I'll get to the part that you guys are probably here for, which is what are the things going on in District 9? So I'll start high level like I've done in the past with our high profile planning projects. So these are the projects that I like to tell people we don't have, sometimes I compare it to building a house or doing a renovation on your house. What did you decide to add to your house? Did you decide you're going to add a bathroom? Did you decide you're going to expand your kitchen? Did you decide you're going to add a patio? What are the things that we want to do, and can those be done? And so a lot of these projects that we have here are feasibility studies, conversations about what the community wants to see in those places to create a plan level document. And a plan level document isn't blueprint level, right? Like you can't build a road off of a plan level document. You can build a road off of an engineering document. We'll talk about the ones where we got those in the works for now. But right now, These are the projects we are working on that high level. So the York Josephine corridor study, I know some of you were involved in that, and you've seen the short-term changes that we put in the last year out there, which are slowing down speeds. I wanted to also let you folks know that we are also in the process of upgrading signals along that corridor as well, which are going to allow us to modulate traffic a little bit better. We have seen some, a couple blocks here and there that are getting congested at peak times, and trying to figure out how we can begin to work through that while still keeping those speeds low and keeping that transit priority for buses that are getting through there. Colorado BRT, that's one that the Denver Regional Council of Governments has been working on, but what would Colorado Boulevard look like if we were able to make it a BRT corridor similar to what's going on Colfax? That project also has some short-term safety improvements that are going on at several of the intersections in District 9. So you don't need a traffic engineering degree to know that Colorado and Montview is tricky, to know that Colorado and MLK is terrifying, to know that Colorado and Bruce Randolph is tricky. So those are some of those intersections where they're going to be doing some short-term improvements having to do with signal timing, striping, that kind of stuff. And then looking towards a long-term vision there. We've just finished a Stout Street two-way conversion study to find out if that is feasible. So that would be Stout Street between Park Avenue and Downing. See if that would be possible to turn that to a two-way street as opposed to the two-lane one-way street that heads out of downtown. Our North Denver Safer Streets project, that's our Globeville, Elyria, Swansea pedestrian and bike safety project that's in the planning phase right now. If you have any friends up there or spend any time up there and want to be involved, we'd love your input on that. There is a lot of large scale investment and large scale construction going on places like Washington Street that we'll talk about later. And this one's really more a quality of life, neighborhood level, get your kids to school, walk to visit your mom kind of level things that we're working on there. I did hear earlier some folks talking about the East Avenue safety study, the safety study going on with 17th, 18th, 13th, 14th. And I can put it in the chat later once I'm done talking, but there is a public meeting on that on Thursday night that there is a webinar option for. So if you guys don't have that info, I can stick it in there. Maybe if Nick is not making himself dinner or something right now, he could plunk that in the chat too. Sometimes you got to make a run during these meetings. But that is Thursday night of this week, that East Avenue's webinar and meeting. And then the final one that barely touches District 9, I just wanted to mention because sometimes it gets left out, is the 30th Avenue corridor study does touch District 9 right there underneath the highway. So we're making sure that folks in District 9 know that we'd like to have their voices heard in that process as well. So what are we making the blueprints for right now, right? What are the things that our designers and our engineers are here doing the real work, the work that I should not be allowed to do that involves numbers and math and geometry, to make sure that those things are ready to be built and ready to be sent off to a construction company. So we've got a couple of cool intersection improvements coming down the pipeline. So MLK at both Birch and Kearney are going to get a pedestrian crossing, pedestrian and bike only crossing. So those will actually have the vehicle turn lane eliminated off of MLK, and we will add in a signalized intersection there that goes north-south, connecting tons of kids to McAuliffe Middle School, rec centers, the new library that just reopened over on Holly Square, all those kinds of things. So we're really excited to see those coming in, but we're working on those drawings right now and hoping to get those out to construction soon. To kind of tie back to earlier, these are bond funded. So these are things that we do need to get out the door. We have that obligation to our taxpayers to do it and get it done. The clock's ticking on us. We're all talking a lot about December 31st of 2027. That's kind of D-Day for us there. So getting that done. We are working on several of the signals on Downing Street. So where MLK and 31st cross over and turn into Champa at Stout Street, those are ones that we're paying attention to, trying to re-engineer those from times past when that was a highway out to the airport to times present when MLK and 31st are neighborhood collectors and arterials, getting folks around neighborhoods, but also have a lot of bicycle and pedestrian traffic at those. A big hurdle we're working on with those is working with the Denver Fire Department to make sure that we can close some of those slip lanes there. So slip lanes are those little dog legs that come off that people come careening around to merge into traffic and cross over some pedestrian areas that lead to some bad behaviors and some high speed. So we've gotten permission to close one, which we're really excited about, and are moving forward with figuring out how we do that. But several of the signals on Downing Street are in the works. We are doing some redesign of the central CTN, the Community Transportation Network. So you might have heard over the last few months that there was a little bit of a change in philosophy on how we were going to put in the neighborhood bikeway through Park Hill on Kearney and Crumeria. That was sort of the impetus for a lot of this. The ask from the community that the mayor asked us to make good on was to reduce the number of pinch points, to reduce the number of signs, and to reduce the number of vertical elements, those pop poles that we have out there. So we are in the process of working on that. We're hoping that those designs will allow us to do more of the speed cushions like we have on 25th and Whittier. So it's kind of swapping out tools there to a tool that personally I think is a little bit more effective. You can still drive pretty fast through a pinch point if you've got space, but driving pretty fast over a speed cushion maybe mess up your car. So we'll see how those go, but really the ones to watch on that that will affect the future design of 28th Street over near Manual High School, as well as a couple of other projects in that CTN package in the Whittier neighborhood and perhaps a little bit down next to Wash Park. So a little bit going on there, but doing some redesign work there. And then up in Globeville, Elyria, Swansea, we have a charge to work on the design for the Betty Cram Bridge, which is the additional bridge that's going to connect the Globeville neighborhood over the river to where all that really cool new CSU Spur stuff is. If you haven't been up there, I encourage you to. And also putting in some, going back to that stormwater stuff I was talking about, putting in some stormwater greenway along the 48th Avenue corridor on the west side of the river there to help with some drainage issues in that neighborhood and connect folks from the South Platte River Trail to Argo Park and the pool and all that kind of stuff over in that neck of the woods. So those are things, like I said, we're working on the designs for them. We're not breaking ground yet, but we're getting those plans done and hiring contractors and all of the many steps involved in getting those things done. And then last but not least, the things you're going to see active construction this year and into early next year. So Washington Street, really the whole Washington Street area is going to be bumping. We've got some stuff kicking off as we speak. Specifically, the Globeville Levee has started construction. So that's another one of those efforts to get folks out of the floodplain in the Globeville neighborhood, reduce flood insurance needs, etc., and help those neighborhoods drain better and not face any ill effects from the river. A lot of that river was unnaturalized and it's kind of being, fixed and made a better place. That one will require some rerouting of the path. So just so you guys know, there will be some detours on the South Platte River Trail. They will be hard detours that involve Jersey barriers, etc., because they will need to go along Washington Street in order. It's really the only option physically that we have to get people alternatively around there, but know that we're working hard to make sure that they are physically separated from vehicles because there is a lot of freight traffic along Washington, and that's just not fun to ride with, as we all know. So 51st and Washington realignment. If you've ever been up in this neck of the woods, that signal is a real bugger. That intersection does not align. So it's really tricky to get through. We've seen a lot of crashes in there, but as part of this broader Washington Street project, we are going to be realigning that intersection. We've gone through the real estate process and are going to begin demolition on an old tire shop there. That's going to give us the real estate we need to do that. We are going to continue working on those CTN projects. So you'll see those kick back up again here later in the spring and the summer. We'll get Kearney Crumeria updated, and we'll get those other projects rolling on 28th, Marion, Lafayette, etc. And then again, to tie back to bond projects, we've got a lot of bond projects we're working on getting out the door, lots of little bits and pieces. So we have some specific bond funding that's going to go in around some of the schools. Close to us, Julie, they're going to be putting in an enhanced crossing at Milwaukee and 40th, where a lot of the kids to Bruce Randolph School come north and south. That's a big one that we're excited to see go in. We're going to be putting in sidewalks on 45th Avenue in Globeville. That will be a good one to see get in right now, where there's literally dirt paths right now that folks are walking on to get their kids to and from school. So lots of little stuff kind of coming in at the end here and getting out the door. And I'm sure there's more things that I missed, but hopefully this gives you guys a grand overview, and I'm happy to answer some questions if you have one. I know that was a lot for me.
Traditionally, we will thank you so much, Maggie. Traditionally, we'll let the representative from that council district go first. Julie, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. This is really exciting. So much. I love your enthusiasm. That's just my comment, is I love how enthusiastic you are and how much you clearly love this. It really comes out when you talk. So, so thank you for the presentation. And it's always nice to hear about our community and see all of the stuff that's going on there.
Excellent. And I've already put in my note that I want the bike lane on Bruce Randolph finished between Colorado Boulevard and Williams Street for anyone else who.
Oh, that would be great. And I'll also just say, don't judge me by my dog's behavior.
Oh, my dog, next time I see you, I will be having to hold my dog because he has the worst Napoleon complex on earth, and he thinks your dogs are this. He thinks he's as big as your dogs, so don't feel bad. Joe, I see you got a hand up there.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One, you're getting rid of my tire shop. I can't believe that.
I can recommend like 10 others. There's a really good one at Steel and 39th. Okay.
I just like the area so much.
I just got a tire fixed yesterday because I drive through those areas a lot for work and get nails in my tires, believe it or not.
Yeah. So my question is on the Kearney Crumeria bike path. And what's the status? Because I'm in District 5 and I said something wrong. We haven't heard any complaints on that. But the reason we haven't heard any complaints is the Crestmore neighborhood, I think, is suing the city to not do that.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of par for the course, right?
Well, how is it done yet? How far along? Because we haven't been on it for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Is it finished?
So
Yeah.
A lot of it has been completed, but based on the feedback and the direction we've been given by our executive team, we're going to be going back and making changes. So we don't have those specific engineering drawings finished and approved yet. So I can't give people a block by block update on that. But the big picture is we will be replacing the pinch points in many areas with speed tables. We will, and so we'll be taking out those vertical elements, but there will be a speed table in that area. There will be a portion of signage that's removed, but there will be still some signage to warn people. We can't put in a speed table without warning people. So there will still be some warning signage for the speed tables. And hopefully in some areas, still some bulb out protection at intersections. But I think in general, folks in the neighborhood were heard and are going to see changes that they like better than what's out there now. but I know we had a lot of folks who just didn't want it at all, and those folks are not going to get what they want.
So is that like gonna happen this summer or maybe later? I don't need an exact date, but
Yeah, it'll be this
Yeah.
summer. We had to stop a contract in order to kind of go back to the drawing table. So as soon as we can get those drawings ready for them, re-engage on that contract, we'll be moving forward and making those changes.
great, thank you.
Okay, we got about 3 more minutes till the next agenda item. Jake, take it away.
Yeah, thanks for coming to speak to us. I think you mentioned every bike facility in the CTN except for Marion. And I was wondering
Yes.
if you had any update on the Marion one.
Yes, Marion Lafayette. So yes, I think I briefly said it at the very end, but Marion Lafayette, I don't have it right in front of me, so I'm not 100% sure, but the diverter will still be going in. To my understanding, that's been the biggest craw in me for a long time, but also the thing I hear the most about from community is that diverter at 37th or 36th, I'm sorry, 36th, where the road realignment happened, to kind of keep some of that faster traffic coming down off of Brighton Boulevard via Washington Street out of the neighborhood and keeping it on Downing instead of Marion there. So that will be going in. I think moving forward, no projects are being scrapped. Just flat out, projects are happening. What we're doing is we heard feedback that people felt overwhelmed by the amount of infrastructure we were putting in some areas, particularly with the white poles and some of the signs we were using. So we're trying to scale that back as much as possible while still creating the safest corridors we can. And I can't remember if either of those corridors have any roundabouts on them, but those will be staying. Roundabouts would not be changing. So long story short, you'd probably see, if they were intended to be pinch points, you'll see speed tables, which, if you ask me, are more effective. But you'll get some info about that soon. Yeah.
But a neighborhood bikeway still going in on Marion and Lafayette.
Correct. And it's in this
Awesome.
package,
Cool.
and it will be done with this package. So I can almost assure you it will be done by the end of this coming season. That could be November, just depending on how the construction goes, but I'm hoping it'll happen this summer.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be great. All right, Alan, I love that you run a tight ship, so I'm not going to let anyone jump in here, but I just want to say thanks. I always love chatting with you guys. Thanks for keeping things at the top of people's minds and pushing things along, and just spending your time caring about how we get around our city. Like Julie said, it's really important to me and my family, and this is the kind of meeting that reminds me that I do what I love to do for a living. So thank you guys for being here, and I'll see you either out on my bike or out on my snowplow soon.
Thank you so much, Maggie. And Maggie, do you mind dropping your email in for the board in case anyone didn't have a question that they were able to get answered today?
I can totally do that right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Maggie. And we're going to jump to our next agenda item. This was something that we were going to try to do in February, but we were having a great discussion, so we were not able to get it through. So we're going to be chatting about a letter around bike storage in the public right away. Hopefully you all had a chance to look at this. I'll share the link one more time here for the DOTI advisory board members, and I'll also share it on the screen here for those of you that weren't able to see it. But the gist of this was is that we've had some residents approach us saying like, hey, I would love to have a bike or an e-bike, but I frankly do not have room to store it in my domicile where I live, in my apartment, in my condo, and things like that. And here is the link to the letter right here for those of you who'd like to look at it. So I've created a quick PowerPoint deck here. I'll try to literally do this in 3 minutes so that you all can kind of go through this and kind of see some examples of this. And you'll have to forgive me. I am not the best at PowerPoint, but I'm going to do my best to share this for you all here. I'm going to take off the letter here and hop over to the PowerPoint. All right, great. So the need essentially again is Denver DOTI has been doing a great job installing bike racks in the public right of way. But again, there's not a lot of options for secure weather storage in the public right of way. RTD, you might have noticed, has some bike lockers at stations, a few stations throughout the metro area, but especially in the more dense parts of Denver, there's not a lot of options for this, especially for the people that have gotten some of the great e-bikes through Denver's e-bike program. So what is secure bike storage? Essentially, it can be as simple as this. Look like a little bike locker here that goes on the street or somewhere else in the public right away. It's covered, allows someone to lock at least one bike or more often multiple bikes inside one shelter. So it's usually kind of a little community area for neighbors to use. So what is this letter asking DOTI to do? It essentially explores, comes up with a policy for residents, nonprofits, businesses, and even the city to install secure bike storage in the public right of way. So where would these go? Options for DOTI to consider considering locations like urban streets, in the parking spaces, and concrete areas, like unused driveways, or some place in the city you can see we've got these 15-foot wide sidewalks, so somewhere like that. Obviously not in the beautiful spot that is the tree lawn and kind of that grassy strip. And then obviously, the letter also addresses accessibility and visibility concerns would need to be taken into account. So this letter isn't really designed to have DOTI write a policy based on this, or let me rephrase that. The letter isn't really designed to be the policy. The letter is to design so that DOTI might start thinking about this and maybe coming up with some policies in the future that it will allow the storage of this. I think most of you had an opportunity to read through this. We've sent it out over email probably 3 or 4 times now over the last few months, but I just wanted to see if we have any comments or general thoughts on this before we talk about potentially signing it and see what folks' thoughts are around it. And I'll pull up the letter here again so folks can see it again. Julie, go ahead.
Oh, just whenever it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion that we sign the letter.
Okay, thanks, Julie. That was quick. Any other thoughts or comments on the letter? Thank you for that, Julie. Appreciate it.
Give me 60 seconds and I'll be happy to approve.
Go for it, June.
But I need to read it.
Jamie also with the comment as well.
Yeah, just a reminder, a lot of these new e-bikes, you're talking $3,000 to $4,000. So obviously, they're not the type of bikes that you can just put on a bike rack. So I think this would really help the community. Secondly, especially in the Capitol Hill area and neighborhoods like mine in District 10, you have a lot of 3-story buildings. These don't have elevators. So for people to be able to lift these bikes up to a 3rd or 4th floor without an elevator, it really is cumbersome. So I really think it would help improve, and actually I would think more people would be interested in purchasing a bike if they knew they had a good place to store it and not take the chance of losing a $3,000 investment. Thanks.
Great. And June, sorry to cut you off there before. You have your 60 seconds back.
Yay. Okay. I read it real quick. Looks good. One very quick note. The e-bike battery fire thing. There is currently a bill in the state legislature to require that e-bikes sold in the state of Colorado have batteries that have been certified to, certain battery safety standards. It's based on model legislation from other parts in the country, but hopefully that could make that problem a little bit less apparent. But, we allow people to park their cars in the public right of way. I think this makes a lot of sense, right? A bike is also a transportation mode. So if someone wants to park their bike in the public right of way and in a secure storage vessel, I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Awesome. Great. Thanks for the input, June. Yep, Jamie's saying, yep, people using the long chargers still exist. Yep, I seems good comments here in the chat. Jamie's spot on. Carrying upstairs is a factor in use. I've heard people mention it off as a challenge. Jake saying that as a District 10 Cap Hill resident as well. So yep, great. Aileen, I don't know if you're still out of pocket, if you can hear. You did mention here, weren't sure if this needed to be included in the letter. If you're open to it, I'd love to include it, and I certainly don't look at this. I think you've got good good points. We definitely have very qualified city planners who could figure it out. I think this is more to kind of get their creative juices flowing, and this is ultimately something that the city and DOTI would come up with and refine a little bit more. But would love it if you all are open to including that at least in.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with this specific language. I just personally tend to err on the side of a little bit less specificity, although that comment now is in direct opposition to what your teacher told you. Right?
You're right. You're right. Yeah.
So I was really, the more the spirit of it was just to let the people who are going to have to design the policy to let them figure it out. But I'm fine. It's not the hill I'm going to die on. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being open to that. And ultimately, yeah, I agree with you. I trust the folks that they'll come up with new ideas and think about things that this letter might not even consider, and may change the idea, but at least we can get the idea going. So we did have a motion from Julie. I guess I should ask any more questions or thoughts on this. We did have a motion from Julie to approve the letter. If there's no more thoughts, if there's a second, we can move forward.
Second, I seconded.
Great, thanks, Joe. So all those in favor of sending this letter to DOTI leadership as written, if you go ahead and digitally raise your hand, I'll go ahead and stop the screen share now. And I guess I would be a yes too, so that would be 9. Okay, I think that's a super majority. If you go ahead and lower your hand, or a unanimous majority. There might be any abstention. Are there any? Go ahead and Jake, you still got to lower your hand. I'm sure you're scrambling to do that right now. Any nay votes? Any negative votes on this one? Seeing and hearing none. Any abstentions? No. Great. Letter passes as written. So we'll go ahead and send that to the DOTI leadership, to Mr. Williams and Director Ford. So that's great. That brings us up to a chat about plans for the fiscal year budget, 6 minutes early. June, if you will give me a quick minute, I'd love to share results of the survey that we did for participants this evening, and also DOTI advisory board members, if you're open to that, June.
Great.
Great. So real quick, June will be talking a little bit about kind of a letter for the fiscal year. And I think based on tonight, it wouldn't hurt to write a letter about kind of DOTI advisory board thoughts on the bond measure, but wanted to share both from the public and from board members tonight how the survey turned up. We've got a lot of support for Vision Zero, a little bit for Safe Route to Schools, one for green infrastructure, certainly better transit bus stops, upgraded bike and pedestrian facilities, additional traffic signals, and additional speed or red light cameras as kind of some of the top choices here. Looking through the verbatims, bus stop comments, extending the Broadway bike lanes, more leading pedestrian indicators, help RTD be successful, matching funds, the L line, upgrading technology, V2V and V2X communication, smart signals, travel times, emergency response times, anything to improve transit, connecting the 15th Street bike lane from downtown to West 29th Avenue, 38th Avenue road safety improvements, improving traffic lighting, traffic calming, especially along neighborhood streets along the planned BRT corridors, bus signal priority, and A-line bridge be funded so that Denver does not need to fund the Pena Boulevard widening project. So about quarter the folks responding were attendees, 75% board members. Other comments that we had, responsive to identified problems and needs, no matter where they are, safety first, focusing on transit, major investment in multimodal, try to sway away from bond money for road repaving and maintenance, replacing bollards. In 2017, it worked well to have a stakeholder committee for each area. Will the city be using a similar process at the time? It sounds like they are. And can GO bond dollars be used funding housing through the DHA? That's a great question. I'm not sure on that one. But at least wanted to share everybody's feedback from both attendees and board members. So hopefully that will give everyone an idea. So I'll turn it over to June. June wanted to chat about potential ideas for a time for a budget finance committee meeting that might work well for everyone. And we could that could be something we could be working on, both a letter for the fiscal year budget for 2026 and also a budget to the Department of Finance regarding the bonds as well. So June, would you like to take it over?
Yeah, sure. So hey everyone, I am your wonderful budget chair. Budget committee, of course, is known for having about 1 to 2 meetings each year, wherein we look at the budget and recommend amendments, and then we wait until there's more budget numbers that come our way. So I'm also very happy to say that I finally got a new job, and I'm already feeling the motivation hitting. So for budget committee meeting, obviously with the bond program, it sounds like we're expecting that to be on the ballot pretty soon, actually. That means we need to write a letter, and we also need to consider, as the department is beginning to draft their budget request for the next year, giving them our feedback in terms of what do we want to see funded in the next year, so they can incorporate it into their feedback to the mayor's office, far in advance of when the budget becomes public, which will happen later this year. So, with all that being said, anyone who is interested in attending a budget committee meeting, please raise your hand and I'll get your contact down. Alan? Is anyone else interested in budget meetings? Okay, Jamie. Okay, so I'm seeing Jamie, Eileen, Alan, and Jake. So among those 4 budget committee meetings, I'd prefer to have during the weekday afternoon just for myself, excuse me, because I'm on a pretty regular work week timeline. So quickly for those 4, if you could put in chat between Monday and Friday, which afternoons work best for you? I'm talking post 5 p.m. Like 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. is about the time I'm thinking. And we'll try to find some agreement between them. Basically, Eileen, I'm just trying to figure out when I should send out the invite for the committee meeting. Seeing Eileen saying Monday. Okay, I'm seeing 2 for Monday. Jake and Jamie, how would you feel about a budget committee meeting next Monday, the 17th? Jamie?
I was just concurring. Thank you.
Great. Okay, Jake, does that work for you?
I think it should.
Okay. I'll send out a calendar invite for next Monday, 5:30 to 6:30, let's say. And we will meet and we'll talk about budget stuff. We'll talk about a bond letter.
And June, one other thing, just to run by you real quick, we are hoping to be able to send a letter to DOTI in April, maybe May at the latest. So we might be able to, if you're open to it, we'd love to add a fiscal year letter as well for consideration and conversation next week too.
Yeah, we could do that. I'll toss that on.
Great, thank you so much.
All right, I'm done.
Great, thank you, June. Very expedient and efficient. Appreciate that. Odds and ends. Gary and Jamie, do you all have any updates from the policy committee before we open up to everyone else?
This is Gary. No, there's really not an update other than we're talking ongoing with Nick. Usually, the meeting is next week, Wednesday, and it is always focused on safety at the moment. So.
Great. Thanks so much, Gary. Jamie, anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to plant the seed with Nick. I recently moved in December a move from 11th and Broadway down to 12th and oh my God, no, I can't think of down near Cherokee, let's put it that way. And the Golden Triangle is just exploding. We have like 10 new buildings that just went up. 5 of them just opened up in the last 6 months. And I was part of that push, everybody moving to upgrade. And I noticed that the traffic patterns have changed drastically. People are using Delaware as kind of like a quick exit off of Spear to get downtown. They're going through several pedestrian-friendly neighborhoods. Our pedestrian traffic has doubled. So I'm just curious if if I can just plant a seed that maybe we do a traffic analysis for this particular area, because we have 5 more buildings opening up later this year in the same area. So it's going to be exasperated. So just wanted to give you a heads up that something's happening down here. So thanks, Nick.
And Jamie, if I'm not mistaken, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, I think there might be kind of a traffic or a study going on about potential better multimodal connections around like Delaware 11th and Spear
I
in
think you
that
might be
general
right, Alan.
neck of the
Yeah.
woods.
Yep, I will check into that.
Yeah,
So you might,
I think that was focused on, there's a crosswalk there that bikers used to use, and I think they were contemplating on shutting that down near Delaware and 12th. So, but I don't think it encompasses what the point that I'm trying to make, that the traffic patterns have drastically changed.
yeah, thanks for that feedback, Jamie. So great, Nick's got that on his list. Any other odds and ends from the group? I'll throw out one question. I think I can't remember if it was Amy or Aileen, but someone had mentioned it would be fun to do a in-person get together, maybe more of a social event. We'd still probably have to list it for Colorado Open Meetings Law, but if you all would be open to doing that, maybe we'll pick a fun, accessible venue when the weather warms up here a little bit to meet up this summer, if you all are open to that. I see some nods of heads, so looks like
Love that idea.
Great. Perfect. Drinks on Joe, Jamie said here in the chat. So thanks, Joe. Great. Well, it's great seeing you all. Is there anything else for discussion? Any other items? No? Great. Thank you all. Have a lovely week, and be sure to fill out the Vibrant Denver bond survey. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Family somehow kept their own family to